Welcome to part 2 of our lecture material for October 15th, 2019 in our 6450 class. We left off with the example of being a systems thinker and thinking through a scenario where I gave an example of my building of how we've eliminated cell phones and some of the things that have reverberated within that system since we've done that, and also how some changes have taken effect after we eliminated the use of Chromebooks at lunch or at recess. So we're talking about systems, and we'll shift over to organizational consultations. So what are the main features of an organizational consultation? What do they look like? How are they different from other models that we've been studying this semester together? The first part of it is that the consultant themselves takes part of the organization which is sick and addresses its needs. And you don't want to think of it necessarily as sick people or sick members of the organization, but something that's really hampering functioning, being kind of sickened. And then as the consultant addresses, the overall health of the organization is elevated. So consultants will work with either teams and groups of people or individuals who are members within that organization. And what they'll do is they'll improve the practice within that system so that things run smoothly, that things run well, so overall efficiency is improved, but also the things that are taking place within the system are effective for all of the consumers. That's what an organizational consultant does. Make sure that effectiveness and efficiency is improved for all aspects of the client system. So really, MTSS itself is a good example of an organizational consultation effort. It uses systemic goals, and the client system, in theory, really should be the state level and the district initiatives, which trickles down to schools and practices that teachers use for students and that families understand. It should be the whole collaboration between all of those systems so that the school is running efficiently and effectively. So think about how MTSS is used as a vehicle for problem solving, and it also strengthens aspects of the client system. Remember, the complexity in the system is paramount because it reflects all aspects of the organization. MTSS and all of its implementation is complicated. Making one change within that system will likely affect other parts of the system. So MTSS is a good example of an organizational consultation. So what are the goals of an organizational consultation? The first one is that of enhancing problem solving for members of the organization. And the second one is that it should strengthen the entire well-being of that organization so that it runs smoothly. I think it would be a good idea for cultural considerations if you're pairing what you're learning in your multicultural interventions class within this organizational consultation model. I think some of what you're learning kind of coincides. Hopefully you talked about it last night in that class, and it'll be more salient when we go over it now. So when the consultant is working in the organization, they have to kind of know the landscape of where things are incepted and how much self-disclosure is preferred by the teachers in the system, the parents in the system, because self-disclosure is not something that is valued or even used in some cultures. Also, you have to consider how much the consultees in the client system want to have some level of self-determination. That's going to vary too. That's a cultural component as well. And I know that with the chapter that we're using for seminar tonight, this is really a big part of it, because within schools especially, there's a power structure and a power dynamic. And there's also things that are not politically going to work within an organization. And those are cultural aspects of the organization as well that the consultant must consider. And the consultant also needs to know how the members within the organization interact with each other, because invariably you will have people from many different cultures. And how do they address any issues related to diversity within their organization? You'd want to know that as a consultant prior to enacting some sort of intervention. Now we're moving to the bulk of this class and the bulk of the lecture material. Edgar Steen has models of organizational consultation. There are 3 of them that are discussed in detail in the book. I'm going to go over them in specific so that they're easily understood. First model is purchase of expertise. The second is the doctor and patient model. And the third model is the process model. So both of these first 2 models are based in what's called an expert consultation. The consultee defines what the problem that the consultant will work on in the first model, and in the second model, the consultant diagnoses the problem and creates interventions or solutions to address what's been diagnosed. Neither of these approaches have been defined, but when purchasing expertise, the consultant has been hired to already address something that's specifically defined. So these ones work with things that are already defined or going to be defined in the process of consultation. When a consultant is working directly on processes that are employed to solve problems, that's a process consultation. Think of these as the how. This method, however, takes time, and it involves facilitation of how to solve problems. And it can also involve generating solutions with the consultee through the process of the consultee choosing a solution. That model is called a catalyst. So you have facilitation of solving problems or generating solutions through the process, which is a catalyst approach. An example of the purchase of expertise model of consultation would be when you hire an external consultant to address issues in your building utilizing positive behavior intervention supports. Maybe your school has innumerable out-of-school suspensions. Maybe it's been the highest in the district. The consultant would work to enhance the user's knowledge of PBIS and would also serve to raise the skill level of the consultees. In this case, using this example, it would be school staff who are utilizing a PBIS system. The consultant would therefore be an expert in the area of positive reinforcement and would also have researched many aspects of PBIS. So this consultant in a purchase of expertise area would act as an educator and also a trainer. An example of a doctor-patient consultation is utilizing a district SPED consultant with gathering data for a specific student who doesn't have an IEP. And this would be in the case where the special education team in-house, is struggling to assess the student at all. So this consultant would gather the data and then support the staff to gather other data that would be managed by that person. And they would diagnose, this consultant would diagnose the SPED consultant what's hindering the student. And eventually, the consultant, him or herself, would educationally diagnose the disabling condition and also write the IEP. This model, however, is dependent on honest, open communication, including all data and not hiding any data that's uncovered. So for that example, it would be if a team really couldn't assess a student on their own and needed a consultant to do the assessment for them, and ensuring all data was reflected accurately. An example of a process model of consultation would enhance problem-solving abilities for the organization. So that would be like working with a school-based team over the course of the year to have a positive effect on staff climate data. According to Doherty, this consultant should have high levels of empathy, model respect, and be genuine. They work directly with staff to address how a problem is solved, although the staff doesn't fully understand the problem yet. So it's the process of figuring out what the problem is. This model is actually the least structured of the three. And these are the three Skine models that we're discussing. And in this model, those intrapsychic variables like attitudes, belief, and values are measured directly in consultation. So I want to call your attention to page 245 in your text. There's an excellent table at the bottom of that page. It illustrates roles and outcomes for each of these models that we've discussed. And I hope that the examples help bring to light what they look like. I want to note that one trend in organizational consultation as a whole is that these models are often combined to a degree when the consultation is initiated by an organization. So we've come to a point here where I was going to have you guys either do a small dance party. I was going to joke about taking a personal needs break, but you're probably doing that while you're watching this screencast anyway. But I just want to process back through what we've covered so far. Looked at the cultural considerations, the overall features of organizational consultations, what the goals are in an organizational consultation, this concept of synergy within an organization and what organizational consultations think of. And we talked about this notion and expanded on it with this systems thinking. We also listened to another podcast from Rick now regarding scenario planning and change. So we're at a point now where we're tying up different types of organizational consultation methods. So what I'd like you to do prior to going on break is just kind of take some notes and reflect. Look back at the slides, which I'll also upload as I always do in a kind of static fashion so you can look at them in Canvas. And I want you to think about how you can conceptualize a problem, even if it's a very kid-specific problem, to have more of an organizational lens. Like, how can you think about it not as something so small as a kid problem, but something within the health of the organization or the efficiency of the organization and how it can be addressed. Because I think systems level thinking also purports that if you make an individual change for a student, that change is going to have some types of effects within the system as a whole. So right before you go on break tonight, think about something that may be particularly challenging in a case in your practicum setting, and how applying some systems level thinking may offer a different way of looking at the problem. Maybe you really like this notion of scenario planning. Maybe you like thinking about the health of the building. Maybe you like thinking about power structures and power dynamics within the organization. Just take some time before you go on break to have more of a systems level lens.